Hi, and welcome to another episode of Freaky Friday. In today's episode, we're going to discuss the scary and tragic case of Christine Paolilla. It's really every parent's worst nightmare. Christine was a lot like every normal all-American girl. She got good grades, she was in a stable relationship, she had loving parents, and by all accounts, her future was bright and she lived in a world of possibilities. Now, shortly after graduating high school, when she was around 18 or 19 years old, her father tragically died. Her dad had a life insurance policy and a living trust, which conveyed his entire estate to his daughter Christine. But the trust did not impose any restrictions on when and how Christine would receive her inheritance. Therefore, at just 19 years old, Christine inherited her father's estate worth several $100,000. What happened next is totally predictable and unfortunately very tragic. You see, at such a young age and dealing with the tragic loss of her father, Christine was not emotionally, mentally, and physically ready to responsibly manage several $100,000. For better or worse, money has the power to change our lives. Capital opens up new worlds and new opportunities that otherwise would not be available. This is true of everyone, and it was true in Christine's case. Now, as often happens when people receive money they're not ready to manage, Christine started to use the money to engage in increasingly risky activities. Her father's inheritance offered Christine near limitless possibilities. Slowly, she began to change. The money began to change her. Ultimately, within months of inheriting her father's estate, Christine developed a severe heroin addiction, which would prove to be her downfall. Christine ended up spending her entire inheritance on drugs, alcohol, and other risky behaviors. What's worse, when the money ran out, Christine and her new boyfriend killed 4 of Christine's former high school classmates in an effort to secure money and access to more drugs. After the quintuple homicide, the police located Christine in a filthy motel room. Detectives on the scene reported that they had never seen anything like it. Hypodermic needles used to inject heroin were piled all over the floor and beside the bedside tables. A bloody mist could be seen on the walls of the hotel room, where Christine and her boyfriend would dispel the blood and remnants after injecting. Christine herself was found barely alive, nearly bald, and subsisting on a diet of heroin and Cheez-Its. Ultimately, Christine was convicted of quintuple homicide and sentenced to life in prison. Now, you may recognize Christine's story because her story was featured on the hit show Forensic Files. And while Forensic Files correctly focused on the sadness and tragedy surrounding the victims she murdered, another tragedy was missed. You see, the quintuple homicides were fueled by Christine's drug habit, which was ultimately enabled by her inheritance. But it didn't have to be this way. You see, although Christine's father had an estate plan and responsibly maintained a life insurance policy to care for his family after he was gone, his estate plan was completely inadequate. It failed to address the significant risks of allowing a teenager to manage so much money. No parent wants this for their child. Christine's father certainly did not want that for Christine. The moral of today's Freaky Friday, and what makes Christine's case so freaky, is that this sad story could have been avoided by controlling how and when Christine received her inheritance. Additionally, proper estate planning could have prevented Christine from using any of the inheritance for drugs. If you're a parent listening to this episode, and if you have young children, please prepare your estate plan properly. Make sure that your estate plan has safeguards to protect your children and your estate from the potential of abuse after you're gone. At Regnum Legacy, we frequently work with families who have young kids, and we have a variety of solutions to ensure this kind of thing never happens. If you're interested in learning more, give us a call and set up a meeting with me to discuss your estate planning needs and how Regnum Legacy can help protect you, your family, and your legacy for future generations.